Why does ADHD make you so forgetful? And how does executive dysfunction affect your emotions? Hi, I'm Dr. Monica Johnson, a licensed psychologist with 17 years of experience working with people with ADHD. And today I'm answering the internet's biggest questions on executive function. What are executive functions? Executive functions are basically your brain's management system. They're a set of mental skills that allow you to plan, stay on track, follow through, manage your time, and control impulses. When executive functions are working well, you can organize your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and get things done. However, when you have ADHD, this is greatly impaired. So everyday tasks like your morning routine, figuring out what you're going to eat or wear, can be genuinely overwhelming. Why does ADHD make me so forgetful? ADHD impacts your working memory. That's the kind of memory you use for what you're doing right now. You want to think about it like RAM in a computer. If it's overloaded or glitchy, things just disappear. Out of sight, out of mind is a very real thing for those with ADHD. So the fix for this is to externalize as much as you can. For example, if you're going to go on a trip, I would strongly suggest that you create a packing list for yourself and write down everything that you're going to need. And bonus points, pack ahead of time. Give yourself plenty of space in order to double check, forget things, and remember them again and put them on the list. If you wait until the last moment, your working memory is going to be overwhelmed with 10,000 different things, and you're way more likely to forget something like your passport. How does executive dysfunction affect your emotions? Think of your emotional regulation system as a brake system. Basically, what is occurring is when a big emotion hits, it hits the brakes and it slows things down, allows you to calm down or get back to baseline. When you have ADHD, the brakes are weaker. So when emotions hit, they hit hard and they last a lot longer than you anticipate. That is exactly why people with EF issues feel more overwhelmed or stay upset for a lot longer than they expected. Why do people with ADHD struggle with executive function? So basically, the ADHD brain is wired differently, especially in the prefrontal cortex. That part of your brain is your command center, and it takes care of things like planning, organization, and time management. Well, when the communication between your prefrontal cortex and the rest of your brain isn't functioning as well, it leads to executive dysfunction. So when this occurs, the prefrontal cortex is not able to communicate with the rest of the brain as efficiently. It has nothing to do with effort or intelligence. It literally has to do with the signals and how they're firing or not firing in your brain. Now, there's still a lot to learn about the ADHD brain, but this is a part that we're pretty confident about. Why do people with ADHD have trouble with time management? People with ADHD often have what we call time perception issues. It basically means that your brain doesn't have a reliable internal clock. So you may think that something takes 20 minutes, but it actually takes 2 hours. The key is to build strategies that work around this. And the key word really is around. I love external tools. So things like timers, digital clocks, and reminders. These will all help you get better with staying on track with your time. Don't think of these things like a crutch. Really think of them like using glasses to correct poor vision. How do I manage executive dysfunction at work? So the first thing that I'll say is it starts outside of work. So you want to start with good foundations, get a good night's rest, have a decent morning routine, and engage in movement. Exercise is honestly one of the best things that you can do for yourself in executive dysfunction. The next thing you want to do is build systems. Use a planner, set up alarms, and prepare for what I like to call interrupter tasks. These interrupter tasks are things like an email that pops up in the middle of a work task, and suddenly that email is the most important thing in the world because ADHD brains have a lot of difficulty with prioritization. And by the way, I'd love to know which one of these executive function issues hits home for you. Let me know in the comments below. What are the most effective strategies for managing executive dysfunction? There are a few approaches that really move the needle. There's CBT or DBT. So CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. This helps with challenging unhelpful thoughts and engaging in more adaptive behaviors. There's also dialectical behavior therapy. This helps with emotion regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, and stress tolerance. Mindfulness and medication can also be game changers for people. In my years of experience, I've found that it's not just one thing, it's usually a combination. So it's really important for you to find what's effective for you. Does ADHD medication help with executive dysfunction? Absolutely. ADHD medications work by making sure that you have enough dopamine and norepinephrine in your brain. These are neurotransmitters that are really important for things like focus and working memory. One of the things that medication does is it lightens the mental load. So when you're not worried about forgetting things or if your emotions are going to be dysregulated today, you have a lot more energy towards the things that you actually want to focus on. Are executive dysfunction and ADHD the same thing? No. ADHD does require executive dysfunction as a core feature. However, executive dysfunction shows up in other things. So this can be things like mood disorders, anxiety, or even chronic sleep deprivation can all lead to EF issues. So if you're struggling with planning, focus, or emotional dysregulation, ADHD is one explanation, but it's not the only one. This is why proper evaluation is so important. Can you have ADHD and not have executive dysfunction? No, you cannot. It is baked into the diagnosis. If someone has ADHD, executive dysfunction is a part of the picture, even if it looks different from person to person. So for example, you may not struggle as much with focus, but have a lot of struggle with emotional dysregulation. Or you may struggle getting things started, but once you are started, you're super organized. Is executive dysfunction an actual diagnosis? No, it's not. Executive dysfunction always shows up as a part of something else, whether that's ADHD, trauma, or something like a mood disorder. Is there a test for executive dysfunction? No, there isn't a test solely for executive dysfunction, but when you're being tested for ADHD or other neurodivergent conditions, executive dysfunction will be noted. So when we give things like clinical interviews, behavioral rating scales, or cognitive tests, these will all paint a picture of what your executive function looks like. So if you're concerned, getting a proper evaluation is a great place to start. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, we actually have a lot more content like this on our channel, so make sure to subscribe. By doing so, you can help to further Understood's mission, which is to make sure that the 70 million people with learning and thinking differences like ADHD and dyslexia can thrive.